Hello, happy Thursday. We're back for another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Took a day off on Wednesday. And yes, for those watching on YouTube, I caved in. I am a very superstitious person and I shaved my beard. At the end of the day, the Penguins are playing like crap. I figured it's best to maybe start over, hopefully grow a full playoff beard over the next 2 months and see, if this is the change that gets them to start winning. I've had a lot of superstitions going back since I was a kid with my mom with the playoffs. So, decided to try something here. If it doesn't work, I guess I'm just a complete moron. But we have a lot to get to for today's episode. We're going to go into a full preview for the last game of the regular season against the Columbus Blue Jackets. We're also going to talk about the David Morehouse resignation and what that means moving forward for the Penguins. And, who is going to get the Penguins out of this mess? Or if anyone can, who is it going to be? We're going to touch on that as well right after this drop.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, happy Thursday. Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. I'm sure I have a lot of Steelers fans that also tune into this podcast. The NFL draft, of course, is tonight. Go check out Chris Carter for all of his analysis on what the Steelers decide to do. My opinion, that I think they're going to take Malik Willis if he falls to them, but who knows? Had to put that shot out there. Chris does incredible work on the Steelers side. And just want to thank all of you for also tuning in on the Penguin side, even though it is the first day of the NFL draft. But let's get right into it. So big news on Wednesday night. David Morehouse is out as the Penguins CEO. And I guess I wasn't surprised that he's out, but more so of the timing. There's one game left in the regular season. The playoffs start right now in 4 to 5 days. 4 days. Officially on Monday, there's going to be a few series, and then I'm sure the rest of them will be on Tuesday. At this moment, I have not heard either way which day the Penguins will play, whether it's Monday or Tuesday. As soon as I hear word about that, you all will be the first to know. But definitely the timing of it was weird. Why didn't this happen? Maybe after the playoffs, when the Penguins are either eliminated or they're hoisting the Stanley Cup in June or July, something like that. So that was the only main thing that surprised me. But overall, I can't say I didn't see this kind of move coming at some point because, this is a new ownership group. They want their own CEO in charge of the team, preferably someone with hockey experience. David Morehouse, I'm not here to rag on the guy. He did incredible things for the Pittsburgh Penguins organization for the last 16 years, helped them win 3 Stanley Cups. He did, I think, a lot of the business side of things. He was, I think, the good cop, I think, to Mario Lemieux. I know he was very close with Mario and Ron Burkle. I can say that for a fact. So the fact that, they're obviously not the full owners anymore. This was always going to be a reality at some point. When you have an ownership group like this coming in, who's, known for, wanting to do things, I guess, their own way, and they want their people in charge and all that. This was always going to be a reality at some point. So again, I can't thank David Morehouse enough for what he did for the Penguins with getting those 3 Stanley Cups. I mean, with the arena deal, with everything, with getting PPG up and running after Mellon Arena, when the Penguins stopped playing at Mellon Arena in 2010, did a lot of great things for the community, of course. That said, he's probably going to go back into doing what he did before he was with the Penguins. He's very into politics. So I would not be surprised if he has a job in some way or fashion in the world of politics. But again, what this means moving forward, they're going to want to hire their own CEO that fits their vision and what they want to see from this team. I think the biggest thing from the Fenway Sports Group, what I can say is, they want to win. They're not here to be cheap and to be bad and to do like a 6 to 7 year rebuild. They want to win as soon as they can, and they will do whatever it takes to win. Remember, like, this team owns the Boston Red Sox. This ownership group, I should say, they own the Boston Red Sox. They own Liverpool out in the English Premier League. 2 very high class organizations. So again, they will do whatever it takes to get back to winning. And I think this is going to be potentially the first of many changes to come within the Penguins organization, especially front office wise. We'll get to the on ice stuff maybe a little later on in this episode. I don't have to remind you of how many free agents this team has, but inside the organization, what other front office members could be on their way out, who really knows at this point, but Morehouse will not be the first, and he will certainly not be the last. Brian Burke is going to be one of the people in charge of the day-to-day operations with the team until they fill that CEO role. I'm sure they're going to start interviews as soon as they can. There's no names as of yet. Once I hear names or there's reported names or something like that, again, you all will be the first to know. And Elliot Friedman even said on the Jeff Merrick show today and in his 32 Thoughts blog last night, he knew this move was probably coming at some point, but some people around the league were definitely surprised that this was the time they were going to do it. And it wasn't going to be, of course, my lab starts to whine, not 6 minutes into the show. If he keeps that up, we are just going to have him as a guest on this episode, to say the least, just so you all can see him and he stops whining. Well, he laid back down, so it looks like he's okay here. We always got to love puppies. I've had him for almost 2 weeks at this point. So, and at the end of the day, again, just want to congratulate David Morehouse for everything he did for the Penguins organization. I still remember, one of my earliest memories of seeing him do a press conference. Everyone, this was at the end of the Ray Shero, Dan Bylsma era, and the Penguins dismissed Ray Shero. I remember after the 2014 series, when the Penguins blew that 3-1 lead to the Rangers. I wasn't even that mad about that, because either way, following that game, there were two good options. The Penguins are going to keep playing, or they're going to need the change that they need because things were just going stale. And when they dismissed Shero, everyone was wondering, is Mario Lemieux going to talk finally? Is it going to be Ron Burkle? Is it going to be David Morehouse? And sure enough, Morehouse comes in, and he had a very good press conference, and he surprised me, I think, in a lot of ways for someone that did not have a hockey background, to say the least. But he's born and raised in Pittsburgh. His family's there. Very close with Mario and Ron. And again, he did a lot of good for this. Yeah, I know I've probably been repeating myself a lot these last, couple minutes, but I just really wanted to drive that point home for you all there. So that's that with that big news. We'll see who they decide to hire to fill that role for right now, Brian Burke, and then the Penguins CEO. I'm almost, the fact that I'm even forgetting his name is that's just embarrassing to me. Let me just find this real quick here on the Penguins social media account. Kevin Acklin. Yeah, he's the CEO. He's the COO of the team. So him and Brian Burke will be conducting the day-to-day operations within the team. I apologize for some reason not even having that off the top of my head. That just makes me look like a complete and utter moron, to say the least. But coming up in the next segment, we're going to preview the Penguins Jackets game on Friday, the implications it has, get to some of the injury updates, one from Elliot Friedman on the Jeff Merrick show, and then a Jason Zucker update in case you all did not see it on social media. Before we get to that, though, Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that gives you the features of $200 sunglasses for a fraction of the price. That means polarized lenses, well-constructed durable frames, and premium high-end finishes. Also, something you won't find anywhere else is Shady Rays' Insane Protection Program. Shady Rays includes lost and broken protection on every pair. They will send you a brand new pair if you lose them, no matter what happened. You can give them a try, and if you don't love them, you're going to pay nothing. It's really as simple as that. Plus, 10 meals are donated to fight hunger in America when you shop with Shady Rays. Exclusively for our listeners, you can head to shadyrays.com and use code LOCKEDON to get 50% off. Again, that's 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. That's code LOCKEDON for their best deal of the season. 50% off 2 or more pairs of Shady Rays sunglasses, backed by over 150,000 verified 5-star reviews. All right, we're back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter, Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at @L_Penguins. So game 82, we finally made it through another regular season on this podcast. This is my third full season covering the team for you all. Again, I cannot, say enough how appreciative I am for you all that you continue to tune into this podcast and hear me rant, grovel, praise, whatever I do with this team. It means so much to me. And for as long as this podcast is going, I am going to be the host unless something ridiculous comes up, and I don't really see that happening at all. I love doing this show. I have a blast with it. And it's always so much fun to talk about this team. So again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all so much for a wonderful regular season. And, we'll see what they can do in the playoffs. Game 82 again against the Blue Jackets. The Penguins have not lost a game against the Blue Jackets since December of 2015. I was 18 years old the last time the Penguins lost to the Blue Jackets. It's at home, at least. It's pretty crazy. Hopefully I did not just jinx it. I just knocked on wood. Forwards wise, Gustav Nyquist on the top line, Jack Roslovic, who's had a good year, Jacob Voracek. Voracek has had a pretty interesting year. He's been a good playmaker. Goal scoring wise, though, it hasn't been there. He doesn't even have 10 goals, but he's been playing pretty well playmaking wise. They will not have Zach Werenski in the lineup. He's going to miss the final 2 games of the regular season. On the second line, Cole Sillinger, I think is going to be a big part of their future moving forward. He's a player that I really like. And he's also had he's had a good rookie year. 15 goals, 30 points so far. Again, Voracek leads the team in points with 59. He only has 5 goals. That's the funny thing. I went on to Left Wing Luck to check that out. Patrick Laine, he will be in the lineup. Yes, him and Oliver Bjorkstrand, they both lead the team in goals with 26. Laine has 56 points. Bjorkstrand has 54 points. Nyquist has had 17 goals this year. Boone Jenner has also played well, 23 goals. Roslovic again, 21 goals for him. So this team they have offensive talent. They've never not had offensive talent. Chikhanov, he's in the top 6. He's also been a really good rookie, though they will not have Sean Corrali in this game either. He is done for the season with a foot injury. The last I checked, I don't think Laine is in the lineup. I'm going to check this out though for the Blue Jackets here. Just making sure, because when I looked to see, I thought he was back healthy, but I guess he was not. Yeah, it looks like, okay, yeah, he's still out of action, so he may not be playing in this game on Friday. At least it doesn't look like it right now. So the Blue Jackets are definitely a little bit banged up, but again, Roslovic is good. Voracek, Gustav Nyquist, Chikhanov is a really good young rookie. Cole Sillinger, Bjorkstrand has had a really nice year. Defensively, though, without Zach Werenski, there's not much there. Bean is not bad. I think he's going to be a good player for years to come, but he's also on the second pairing. Kukin is fine. Gavrikov's on the top pairing is whatever. Peak is whatever. Carlson on the third pairing is I'm sure they're going to start Elvis Merzlikins in this game. Their backup right now is JF Berube. It looks like Korpisalo is also done for the year. So, this is a pretty banged up Jackets team, but this is also a game that the Penguins, they should be able to win. You want to go into the playoffs on as well of a note as you can. I know they've not played well these last 2 games, but hopefully a win here can maybe at least change the fortune a little bit. You're going up against a team that it's a big brother, little brother rivalry. You usually own the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Penguins have beaten them all 3 times this year, both times in Columbus. Both the games I think were almost in blowout fashion. Well, at least I think the second one was, and then the first home game they played in Pittsburgh, the Penguins just absolutely blitzed them. It was 5-1, 6-1, or something like that. The game was just not even close. So I would expect hopefully the Penguins to win this game. I know it doesn't really mean much outcome wise. They're going to have to play a tough team in the playoffs no matter what, whether it's the Florida Panthers, whether it's the New York Rangers, but I still want to go out here on a good note. I don't think the Penguins are going to rest anyone at this point, just because there are valuable standings points in play here. There's the chance that the Penguins could be playing still. I mean, they will be playing for third place, but there's a chance that if they only have to win the game, they will get third. It all comes down to what happens for this Capitals-Islanders game on Thursday night. If the Capitals lose either in regulation or in overtime, no matter what, all the Penguins have to do is win against the Blue Jackets, and they will play the Rangers. If they don't, and if the Capitals go to the Madison Square Garden and they beat the Rangers, it'll be Caps Rangers first round. It'll be Pens Panthers first round. So a lot up in the air. It's all going to be decided on Friday. Stick with the podcast, of course. I'll let you all be the first to know, and I'm sure you also will get the alert too. So the Jackets, again, this should be a very winnable game for the Penguins. The Jackets have not been playing well down the stretch, and I'll be curious to see. This game, just play better defensively. I think that's really the main thing the Penguins have to do to get this win. They should be able to forecheck fine against a Jackets team that's not that deep. But if the Penguins, they can get back to, being really stingy in the defensive zone and not giving up these odd man rushes and being able to get the puck out swiftly and efficiently, they should be able to take home the win here. Casey DeSmith is expected to get the start against the Jackets. Tristan Jarry will not be available until the playoffs at some point, who knows. And speaking of Tristan, I did listen to Jeff Merrick and Elliot Friedman on the Jeff Merrick show today, and Friedman was talking about some of the goalie injuries, and he said, and I quote, that the Penguins, they're hoping and they're crossing their fingers that he will be available here at some point in the playoffs, but he doesn't know when that is going to be. So it's he and for reference, he said the UC Saros injury, he was hearing a lot worse with that one. So the fact that Tristan's injury doesn't seem as bad as UC Saros's one, that's good news. It's been 2 full weeks now since he had that broken bone in his foot, has not been on the ice. Here's hoping that, sometime over the weekend or sometime early next week, he'll be back on the ice and, somehow playing through pain. And as for Jason Zucker, Mike Sullivan confirmed that he is still being evaluated for lower body injury, did not say one way or another if it's related to the core muscle injury that he had for a lot of the season. This is what you're going to get from NHL coaches at the end of the season going into the playoffs. They're going to be very tight-lipped with injuries just because that's what it is. There's gamesmanship. They don't want the other opponent to know who's going to play, who's going to not play. That's how it is this time of year. I think, if you're not used to it yet and you listen to this podcast, get used to it. I will say that 100% right there. But that wraps up this second segment of the show. Glad we could talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets. If you are a betting person, I will say this, especially for Bet Online with what we do on the show. I would bet Jake Gensel to score against the Blue Jackets. He usually owns them. That is a team that that their fans basically probably hate him at this point, especially after what he did in the 2017 playoffs when he was basically scoring on every shift when he was out there. Lines-wise today, Mike Sullivan did a little bit of juggling, took Brock McGinn off of Evgeny Malkin's wing. Thank God. I do not need to see Brock McGinn on that wing. He slid them down to the bottom 6. Danton Heinen was up there with Rickard Rakell. I would still move Rickard Rakell up back to the Crosby line, move Brian Russ down. But, it was Gensel, Crosby, Russ. Heinen was with Malkin and Rakell. And then Rodriguez was on the 4th line with Brian Boyle, Teddy Bluger, and then Jeff Carter was with Kasperi Kapanen and Brock McGinn on the 3rd line. So Jason Zucker's not ready to go for the playoffs. Brian Boyle will be in the lineup, but if he is ready to go, I would assume Boyle would be the scratch, but I would also not be surprised if it's Kasperi Kapanen. Hell, at this point, I think Kapanen should be out, and I think Brian Boyle should be in. But that's how I see it. At least it's just, nothing Kasperi Kapanen is doing at this point. He should not be in the lineup. That's how I say. He's been given chance after chance after chance to say that, this is different and, to show us that he can play the level that he played at last year, but it hasn't been there, to say the least. So coming up in the final segment, we're going to get into the topic of who can get the Penguins out of this hole. Who does it have to be? And I have my answer for you all. But first, BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. You can find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. You can head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. That is BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, we're back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. So, I know I crushed the team a lot on my last episode, and I don't take back what I said just because I still feel that way today. And I also don't take back what I said the previous 4 months, when I said this team was a contender and that they can play with the best teams in the league, because I know they still can. It's all a matter of, can they rediscover that part of their game again? And, for that to happen, they're going to have to be led by their captain. It's going to have to be Sidney Crosby that leads the team out of the abyss and gets them back into contention here. He is the main player that I am looking at to get out of this mess. He's had a hell of a season. He has to know in the back of his mind that this could be it for not just this entire team, but for 2 of his most long-tenured teammates and also 2 of his best friends. I mean, think about it. He has played with Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang since the 2006-2007 season. The last 16 years, he has played with those two players. I was watching clips of the 2009 Stanley Cup final a few days ago, just because I love to reminisce and all that stuff. And, you look at the players on the team today, it's those three. It's always been those three. And, it's going to have to be Sid that does it. What's the word I'm looking for here? He's so motivated by winning. I know he wants to get that fourth Stanley Cup, and especially with Evgeny Malkin, and, be the first duo to win since Gretzky and Messier. His 200-foot game has never been better. He's having a ridiculous season with almost 90 points in not even 70 games. He would definitely be on my Hart Trophy ballot if I had a vote. And he needs to continue to play like this in the playoffs. His line is going to have to drive a lot of the offense. He especially is going to have to drive, I think, a lot of the offense, because if Evgeny Malkin is off even just a little bit, the depth may not be able to pick up the pieces as it has in years past. And again, I think putting Burkle back up with Sid will do wonders for him. But, even if Brian Russ is up there, Sid still needs to do his job. His line got shut down pretty efficiently in that game against Edmonton. And, Sid looked pretty pissed off at himself for, missing on some chances, missing on some passes as well. I think he's going to take that personally going into this game on Friday and into the playoffs. So again, it's going to have to be Sid. Mike Sullivan can do all he wants, with, changing up the lines and maybe changing up some of his tactics and, changing up some, defensive pairing as well. But if Sidney Crosby is not playing at a high level, then this team is not going to go anywhere in the postseason. He cares too much to let this team, be swept in the first round or lose in 5 and all that. He's going to be very motivated, I think, to prove a lot of people, and, probably myself included right now, for what I said on Tuesday, wrong. He's probably one of the most competitive people I think I've ever seen in my life, for as long as I've been watching sports, at least. So again, it's going to be Sid. It has to be Sid if this team wants to go on one more run before the window closes, and potentially before one, if not both, of Chris Letang and Evgeny Malkin walk. I know Sid spoke to the media today about that possibility, and he said, I know we're not going to play forever, and obviously he said it's in the back of his mind, but right now he's going out and trying to focus on winning this last game and then winning in the playoffs. And and I hope he shows that. Last year I thought he was pretty decent in the playoffs. He was not the reason they lost, and he needs to play at that level, if not a higher level, if this team is to potentially have an upset in the first round, because the Penguins, they're not the favorite going into any of these two series. I will say that right now, especially not against Florida with their high-powering offense, and especially not against the Rangers either with how they played in their final 3 games against them. The Penguins only scored 1 5v5 goal in 4 games against the Rangers, which is just flat out embarrassing, to say the least. It should not even be a legal thing to happen. But again, I'm looking at the captain. He's going to have to pull them out of the abyss and for them to go on a deep run. And if he can channel some vintage Sid like he's been doing for a lot of this season, their chances go up dramatically. You can never rule out the Penguins, especially a team led by Sid. And again, if there's anyone, behind the bench or on the ice that can lead them, out of this slump and in the playoffs where it all resets to 0-0, it's Sidney Patrick Crosby. And I will stand by that hill. I don't think, it's going to be, Gino or Letang, for as good as they've been, they're not going to, take charge and, put the team on their backs. It's going to be Sid. That's how I see it, at least. But again, that'll do it for this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I really appreciate all of you listening to this one. We'll be back again on Friday. I believe I'm going to have Taylor Haas on from DK Pittsburgh Sports. We're going to talk all about this season, going into the playoffs, going into that game, excuse me, against the Blue Jackets. And then Monday, the schedule's going to be interesting moving forward. I don't know if I'm going to have a full game recap episode for that. I think we're going to have a playoff preview with one of the other Locked On hosts. It's going to be Armando from Locked On Panthers if the Penguins play the Panthers. And then it should be John Chick of Locked On New York Rangers. So I think he might be out for the next couple of days because he and his wife just welcomed a baby. So congratulations to him. I think it might be Gil Martin of Locked On Islanders to take his place, or I think one of the people from Locked On Senators may take his place. So I'll have more details for you all on the Locked On Penguins Twitter account at LO_Penguins or on my Twitter account at Hunter Hodes. I will fill you all in on the schedule as soon as I know. So we might have potentially a weekend episode. We might have a preview episode on Monday. I do not know that, that's for sure. But what I do know is very likely having Taylor Haas on the show on Friday to talk all things Penguins. So appreciate all of you coming on to the show. I appreciate all of you listening to the show. I cannot speak for some reason right now. And I will be back with another episode of this podcast again on Friday.